Aloha, Satnam. Welcome to this first interactive education platform for our community that happens to be more virtual in this time. It is a great honor to be able to preserve ancient sciences that come from faraway lands that can travel and be passed down from one individual to another and shared and collectively make it from one civilization, from one culture to another, and be preserved, maybe even lost, but then the purity of those teachings has recycled back through human consciousness in a time when it's needed the most. And forget about even a time when it's needed the most. More specifically, it's just needed because this body is a machine and there is an instruction manual on how to turn this machine on so it works at an optimal level. And I'm going to give you the base mechanics for that and kind of scratch the surface on our overall intention was just to create a very in-depth platform for you to explore the sciences of this sacred machine. I'm going to close this door real quick. And in exploring the sciences of this sacred machine, we can understand how it works better. We can experience and reap the benefits of a more optimal functionality from our bodies. And we can go through a riveting process of exploring how off our standard functionality processes are, whether it be breathing or walking or sitting, because we weren't taught a divine engineering to this machine. A really beautiful example that is on your screen right now would be, just adjust this a little bit, would be what the position I'm sitting in right now, which we're going to be doing a good portion of our breath work and exploring the mechanics of the yogic sciences of breath and breath work. It's called easy pose, and you can see that one foot tucks perfectly in front of the other. In fact, this foot, the heel goes right into the groin and actually presses on the perineum, or the space between the genitals and the anus, where there are nerve points at the root base of your body. And for men out there, prostate cancer is the #1 cancer for men. In fact, statistically, if you don't die from something else, all men will die from prostate cancer. So when we put pressure here, sitting in this position, we're actually stimulating the nerve endings that go into the prostate, which, when doing this consistently, activates the prostate to detox and its functionality to stay optimal and not stagnant, thus preserving the prostate and also your sexuality as a man. Because I believe by 40, it's 1 in 4 men have some form of erectile dysfunction. Why? Well, because we haven't learned that this body is a machine and your reproductive system is a machine, and that you can tend to that machine to get it to work better by various practices that are incorporated in your lifestyle. So they're not something that you do once a week. They're something that's the equivalent of brushing your teeth. And I use brushing your teeth a lot as a metaphor because it's a consistent practice that all of us have accepted and learned and accepted is necessary for our body, our nervous, our teeth, our bacterial content needs to be put in check by cleaning the teeth and the gums. And that you're constantly eating food, so it's getting in between the gums and the teeth. And this is just something that you don't have to do, but you know that if you don't do it, there are consequences for it. So the body is the same way. And there is a system divinely engineered to unlock and open the body, the nerves, the muscles, and give you the same sovereignty that you have for being able to brush your own teeth. You don't just have to go to a dentist. You have a regular practice you can do to keep up. And then, of course, your level of practice and involvement in your oral hygiene affects your dental visits that you have. So just the same, there's a divine engineering to how to unlock and clean the body. All right. So we're going to go into the yogic sciences side, the ancient sciences of unlocking the body and the breath work and activating the tissue and the cells with breath. And then tomorrow we're going to be going in depth into how to unlock the fabric and tissue of the body through neuromuscular release therapy, self-treatment, principles and techniques. We're going to explore the basics and probably focus on sinus, lung, and immune system. Okay, and then we're going to discuss more the 13 video series that we're going to be producing as content for the self-treatment system, because I'm going to show you the principles and techniques, which will be the first video in this series. But then the other 12 videos are going through the body sectionally. And as we go through the body sectionally, we're going to, aloha, welcome, thank you for joining. And as we go through the body sectionally, we're going to be breaking up the body into 12 sections, which allows for focus for each area and then a connecting of them all into a movement and pattern to sweep your whole body, which you could take 30 minutes to do, you could take 5 minutes to do before you go to sleep. Ultimately, you're lying in bed already. So you're already trying to decompress from your day. So the yogic sciences and breath work are very much the same. You're already going to be going to sleep. So I always have a practice that I do before I go to bed, and I have a practice I do when I wake up to integrate from sleeping. Because one of the greatest compromises to your sleep, to your posture, to your health and wellness is sleeping. Because we tend to sleep in very twisted and warped ways, where our spine is twisted, funky. Most of us don't sleep on our backs, which is the healthiest way to sleep. Add this person in. All right, welcome, son. Son Dilly. So, the yogic sciences of breath. There is breath mechanics. And breath mechanics are based in a substructure that we're going to explore because the Western mind does good with groups and categories for things. Okay? So we're going to go through Ujjayi breath today. We're going to go through different forms of breath of fire, Pranayama and Padapati, 2 different styles of a more accelerated breath that's for building fire and heat in the body. This is to activate the immune system. It creates hypoxia in the body. Hypoxia is in a very interesting process where we trick the body to think that it's dying. And in the process of doing so, we do that in the pauses between our inhalation and our breath work. And in that pause, where we create a state of breathlessness, which is a yin state. And that breathlessness is really interesting because it is the void, it is the creation zone. And that void, that breathlessness, when you stop the breath and the oxygen to the body thinks it's dying, so it directs all the oxygenated blood to areas that need it the most, which would be damaged areas and tissue in your body. And we take a deep breath and we pressurize the oxygen, which is like injecting it into the bloodstream. We rush that oxygenated blood to the brain. It starts turning on the dormant centers of the brain. And it also creates a euphoria and a high that actually is the high that we're intuitively looking for externally, whether it's with a glass of wine or a spliff or some MDMA or a little mushrooms. All of these components externally, the craving for euphoria or a high comes, in my experience in research, with an internal craving that you have for yearning to turn your brain on. Because when you turn on the dormant centers of the brain by flooding this oxygen, it creates a euphoria. And my personal metaphoric depiction, Spirit understood that the human consciousness needed a reward system. And so by doing this breath work, you create a multitude of rewards, but on a sensory level, you create this euphoric feeling with not only endorphins activating and not only with every cell in your body being activated down to a mitochondrial level, but you also experience a sensation of a euphoria and a timelessness and a spaciousness that helps you to decompress from the body itself, which we tend to get compressed in. So we're going to be exploring this breath. And by the way, we're going to tune in a minute. So we're going to go through some sound mechanics. Again, these are the yogic basics that I'm taking you through that I have collected over 20 years. So we're going to tune in, go through a little sound. And after we tune in, I'm going to speak with you a little bit about what we're doing. This is a big thing that was lost with the Eastern sciences coming to the West. Is a lot of the pulp of the character of learning these systems, which was generally taught guru-disciple one-on-one, where the teacher would speak about a multitude of things besides just doing the actual kriyas or teaching the techniques. He would speak about perspective, metaphorically, about what we're doing, and give your brain and mind food to be stimulated with while you're doing these physical kriyas. And so unfortunately in the East, what I've noted, or in the West, what I've noticed is the Eastern sciences and their Westernization is we get a very cookie cutter manufactured process where people come, they do the physical kriyas, they have a very short period of meditation at the end, and then they're off into their world and their busyness and whatnot. But in the East, all the kriyas we do, all the breath work is to get you to a place of stillness where meditation is more comfortable and easy, and you can go deeper into the states of stillness because you've gotten the body to settle down. So to do a bunch of kriyas and calm your system, your nervous system, and your mind, to just go into a shavasana or a meditation for a matter of minutes and then you're right back into the craziness, is actually very jarring for your nervous system and your consciousness. But we have this commercialized and capitalized mentality here in the West, which naturally affected the structure of the Eastern sciences. So ironically, being in a virtual place now, what a neat concept that we could support the facilitation of the Eastern sciences authentically in the West in a format that's so impersonal, yet so personal, because I'm one-on-one with each one of you and giving you actually more of the attention and presence that would be needed that you wouldn't really get from a class of 20 or 30 people, and the privacy of your own space to explore this. I support, exploring this with family members. I've had a lot of close childhood friends even that are at home in quarantine with their families, and they're like, make these videos and we'll do them. Well, the whole family wants to do them. So my apologies for taking so long for us to get dialed. And again, we're still working bugs out. This is also an interesting challenge with the yogis and the teachers of this day and age is we have different interfaces. So I am not the most technically savvy in terms of broadcasting and webinars and portals and packages. So I'm having to adapt to all of that because I don't have a team here. I'm isolated on Kauai. And so it has been a lot of a journey to adapt, so to speak, to these formats. So as I'm kind of letting people collect back in, and it looks like we're in a good place to begin. We're going to tune in. What is the purpose of tuning in? What's the significance of doing something like this? Well, my intention in sharing what tuning in is for you to understand that you can create a containment field at any time for anything, whether it's a conversation, a confrontation, which can always transition to conversation, but to create a container, because we tend to have transient interactions with each other, and there isn't a closing of energy to where it's a containment of what was exchanged that really feels absorbed between two humans, which is ultimately our desires to feel understood and to understand each other. So when we create a container, whether it's for a conversation or for a creative process. We're creating a containment field in the space around us for what we're doing. So we're going to use sound, and we're going to use the mechanics of our body's electromagnetics, which means you are a polar being. Okay. Welcome this person in. All right. I think somehow it's set to where I have to accept people into the class. Again, working out the details on these structures for Zoom so we can get really dialed with this. So you are electromagnetic. It's why you get shocked if you were to stick a fork in a light socket. There's an electric current, over 150,000 BTUs bioelectrical units running through you. Let's see. That is...
Please mute yourself, whoever just came in.
I think I just caught it. Thank you for that. That 150,000 bioelectrical units running through you is more than what runs the 12-volt battery that runs your car. So we are a bioelectric, powerful vessel. And the right is the masculine, the left is the feminine. And when we take these two, by the way, notice that you have 4 fingers and 1 thumb, 4 polarities, okay? In fact, you can test foods for yourself. This is just a little side note, which, by the way, is part of that content that you get when you're one-on-one with a teacher, which we're going to go into after we tune in. I'm very blessed to have been raised in the Eastern format of the Eastern sciences. And that was my overall goal as well in doing this, is to be able to give back a feeling of that structure, a format of that structure with the East, to get some of the amazing things. I was blessed to have teachers that would sit with me for hours. I would come all day and stay there, and we would be doing massage and biochemical nutrition and Kundalini yoga and exploring the sciences and mantras and scripture and ancient teachings and the Sumerian tablets. And, you know, it was an exploration into a world I never knew what we were going to get into besides the sciences. There was always an extra pulp that was exciting and allowed for the stimulation of an ambitious excitement to see what we'd get into for the day. So it was some of the most magical chapters of my life. And I always knew that at another point I would, just by being able to experience that, I could recreate it. And that really is what apprenticeship or mentorship or discipleship is being able to be in the experience of someone facilitating the sciences and being able to experience sacred aspects of the sciences from an experiential level that you can't get from a class or a program the same way. It comes from having a one-on-one experience. So I always knew I'd be able to facilitate that in my own way and recreate it, and I'm honored to do so with you guys. So the right side, masculine, left side, feminine, fire, water. We're going to take the two and we're going to rub our hands together, and we're going to build a kinetic heat between the hands. And you'll feel them warm up. Again, literally, this is the science behind it. We're taking and we're stimulating through friction, creating a bioelectric surge or a golden kind of charge up of light, of electromagnetics, and then we're going to take it and place it right at the heart center, which has the largest electromagnetic field. So we're going to inhale and exhale twice softly. On the third one, we're going to release a sound vibration, Om Namo. We're going to take another breath, Gurudev Namo. Now, these are ancient sounds. They represent very, very basic description, bowing down to the divine guru inside of you and to the lineage of teachers that facilitated this and passed it on to where we're able to practice it today. So it's honoring the lineage of humans even that facilitated this divine engineered system. We're honoring the process around it, okay? Now, before we go into Om Namo, Gurudev Namo, I want you to get the most out of it. And I want you to get the most out of it through the way that you create the sounds. So because this is also an instrument, and this instrument has 5 different sound resonances it can make. Okay, we're going to point them out. Okay, so I'm going to break from this, but when I bring it back, I'm going to have to create, there's a pocket and energy that goes, as soon as I take it apart, I disperse and release that energy, but I'm going to point out where they're at in the mouth, in the jaw, in the roof, the back of the throat. Okay, so we have A, E, E, O, U. A, E, E, O, U. So back, you can feel back at the throat. You can even touch along the instrument and feel where the resonance comes for some of these. So E's more in the jaw. You can even see the jaw more pronounced when doing it. E. Now notice how I could just go E, or I can really get into the flexion and the extension and the posturing of my instrument to create a deeper resonance. E. O is going to be the front of the jaw, back of the teeth. O, very jaw incorporated. It's resonating in the front. O, A, E. Okay, so then we're going to go. We have O, and then we have A. A is like really front. E, A, A, E, A, O. And then U is really, it's all lips, back of the teeth, roof of the mouth. U. You can see I'm over pronouncing, I'm over exaggerating the posturing of the mouth for this. Okay, so I'm going to give you two examples with applied to this specific chant that we do. I'm just going to kind of half-ass Om Namo Gurudeva Namo. Okay, that was middle sound resonance for me, not full effort. Okay, so now feel and hear the difference in the resonance capacity, because the goal with this, especially when we do it together, is that the sound frequencies play off of each other. So if you're doing this with your family, try to play the sound frequencies, and obviously we want them to be harmonic, so try to tune with each other, but you'll feel at some point your waveforms push off of each other. And I felt this a lot in classes that I've taught or classes that I've taken. If people start aligning the sound frequency, generally with very large classes, it's kind of all over the place. So here we go. So we're going to Heath. So we're going to do 3 of those. Om Namo Gurudev Namo. First 2, we're going to take that breath in between the Om Namo and Gurudev Namo. And the last one, all the intervals will be shorter. And we'll do it in one breath. So Om Namo Gurudev Namo. So that's kind of, that's the harmonic for it. Okay, so here's the louder version. Om Namo Gurudeva Namo. I'm over exaggerating so you can see the resonance and how much fuller it can be. I want you to explore that, play with this. We took a day just to get into sound with one of my yogis, where we just explored the mechanics, and it was just a pure base of like, what can I do with this instrument to make sound? All of this really has a great support and promotion for if you're a singer, which all of us can sing. Singing is a pure act like dancing or walking or breathing. And so all of us should get more acclimated to our sound. And this is a good challenge for you to see where your insecurities lie around sound, and to break through those, because each of us has a voice and a sound that we need to accept and come into full resonance and appreciation of. So here we go. We're going to inhale twice. On the third one, we'll do our first sound vibration, taking a breath in between, second one, breath in between, third one, all in one breath. Okay. So after we finish this, we're going to blow all the air out, and then we're going to take it, stay breathless for a second, 10 seconds. And we're going to take a deep breath. Sip a little more. We're going to hold and squeeze. Now, base mechanics before we do this. this is called the breath pressurization. We're going to be doing our first one. So we're going to take a deep breath. We're going to pull like we're holding from having to go to the bathroom, from peeing, from urinating. You can see that my stomach pulls up, pulling the breath into the upper respiratory, okay? And I'm going to be here, so I'm going to be holding and squeezing, tucking my chin. The tongue's going to be pressed to the roof of the mouth. Eyes roll to the third eye. These locks are what generate the electricity to move up, okay, with the breath. All right, and we're going to get into the mechanics of that. We'll go too deep in after we tune in, because we'll get into the content for the class that will be contained in our container for the class, which is one of the things we want to do, is contain that. All right, and then we're going to start into the mechanics of breath and whatnot. And we're going to talk a little more, and then we're going to start integrating in Kriyas to actually practice with once we go through the basics. Okay, so there is talking, there is intellectual stimulation in classes that are more one-on-one. It's not where we just go in and do the patterns, and this is where, again, like I said, there's been a personalization that's been lost with the westernization of these Eastern sciences that were designed to really be focused on details. And that is what Raja Rishi is about, or the Rishis were the purest system of the yogic sciences. They were just the more advanced side of the engineering of the system. And we're going to go through the biochemical side, the anatomical, the physiological side of why this engineering is so cool, just in showing you what each technique and doing it this way does for the functionality of activating physiology and anatomy, and how specific it is. That's kind of the cool part, is it's not about belief. It's about looking at the science side of understanding why these things do it. So there's both the experiential, and then there's the intellectual side of understanding the anatomy and physiology and the magic of why it was engineered this way. And you can do it a bunch of different ways. There's different, more diluted ways to do kundalini, to do breath work, to do pressurizations, to do sound. But I'm teaching you the pure form of the system from its conduits that were channeled through, that now are coming back for us. So starting again, we're going to build that energy again, because I lost it by breaking, creating that pocket electromagnetic pressure, placing it at the heart center. And we're going to inhale and exhale. And inhale and exhale. And inhale to tune in. That's where we're going to take a deeper breath for the one where the sound comes out. I almost stretch the jaw and the mouth with the sound as I do the last one in one breath. Staying breathless for a few seconds. Deep breath, deep as you can. Bringing all that oxygen up. Holding, squeezing. Sip a little more. Really put the pressure with the hands here. Chest open, chin tucked, eyes rolled to the third eye. Drawing the energy, the oxygen up. Now, from the moment that I do that, it grounds me to a center point that is overly significant. If I feel rushed for the day and I just want to get a quick set in and do a few Kriyas, if I skip creating the container, I feel a difference. So there is a great significance to this, to creating this container and closing it with the same frequency. Like I said, if you don't feel you have a few seconds to do this, and you can only do a couple Kriyas, and that's what you've told yourself, by all means, just do the Kriyas. But test it, because everything is testable in life, and the results will always show you. You will feel more of a containment if you do this in the beginning and the end. Okay? And I'm not going to get into one of the other chants that we normally do, traditionally, because it's going to be too much to remember sound vibration. I don't want you to sit with this first base one because it's very pure. And again, you know, you're harmonizing sound through your entire body. All your cells are harmonizing the sound when you can get your presence to the entire body through the process. So now that we've gone in and tuned and created a container, we're going to explore the mechanics of breath. And we're going to get into our first Kriyas we're going to do. And we're going to finish in a deeper state where I want to support you to do some meditation with me, even for a few minutes, to really get into the feeling of the body, checking into the feeling of the body with the silence and the stillness, which then create more spaciousness. Because if you think about it, from the time you're born, you're just a baby blob, and life tells you to compress and pull yourself together, and your egoic mind forms from the compression of your soul in the physical vessel and how it compresses into this machine of tissue, and that tissue carries your issues, literally carries your memory, and it's designed to be clean like a sponge. Like when you're washing dishes after you've washed a few plates, there's food that cakes into the sponge, at least for me when I'm washing dishes. So I'll rinse it and I'll get more soap on and I'll get a nice froth going and I'll kind of clean out the food I just cleaned a plate with. The body is the same in terms of the sponge mechanics of the tissue. Tissue is porous and spongy. It collects its chemical memory. That chemical memory accumulates in the body and your body compresses. So it is vital for you to find practices to create space, both physically by decompressing the tissue, and then naturally, because the compression of all those versions of you are tied to your psyche. So it ends up feeling really crowded in here because this thing gets crowded because nobody taught us it needed to be decompressed every day, which could come from just squeezing the tissue, just giving yourself a squeeze on every part of your body. By the way, for those of you sitting in easy pose with me all this time, easy pose isn't so easy, is it? You should be feeling it in your knees and your ankles, and this is kind of one of the first subtle passive lessons that we integrate, is how challenging it is to sit in this position. So I just want, I could sit in it comfortably for hours because I've been able to open and acclimate my joints and my tissue to draining, because that's what's happening when I'm bending my tissue into this way. It's not used to. It has a process where it's opened in a way and draining, and it's draining in a way it's not used to because it's being bent and stretched in a way that it's not used to. So easy pose. Once you stretch out, just come back into it, because this is our foundational pose. And here's a little homework for you when you're watching Netflix or the next conspiracy YouTube documentary. Sit on the floor in front of your couch and let your couch support your back, but sit in easy pose and just log in, 10 minutes at a time. You'll be distracted by the alpha brainwave state visual imagery of whatever you're watching. So it'll make the time go by faster sitting this. It won't be as grueling, so to speak, because you'll be distracted. But if you stay consistent with it, you're going to notice that easy pose does get easier and easier. Okay? So the mechanics of the yogic sciences of breath. Well, first we're going to look at the divine basic functions of breath, okay? Which most of us don't know. The divine basic functions of breath are what? Breath is oxygenates the blood, which then pumps through the arteries to the heart, and then the vascular side pushes out the blood that's being filtered through the heart. CO2 filters out of the body, and the arterial side is pumping the oxygenated blood in, okay? So it's going to the brain, it's going through the heart, it's going throughout the entire system, right? So, and our muscle here is pumping it with its electromagnetic field, distributing that oxygenated blood all over the body. Okay, so that's the way the machine generally works. So when we activate more refined and what appear to be divinely engineered mechanics around breath, we're going to get a more optimal level of oxygenation to the blood, which appears to be what we really need. In fact, since most of our brains are operating at 5 to 7%, and a good majority of our brain is dormant gray matter, we want to stimulate that gray matter and activate and get as much oxygenated blood to flood into the brain, kind of like pumping the gas pedal and trying to ignite, if a car's not turning over, what do? Well, one of the techniques for an older car, it doesn't work so much with newer cars today, but is that you would pump the gas pedal and try to turn it over by flooding the engine with fuel. Maybe it would combust. So it's similar with the brain engine. If we flood it with oxygenated blood, that oxygenated blood goes into the gray matter in the brain, starts turning it on, activates the dimethyltryptamine, which is part of that euphoria process of turning your brain on. And remember, your brain is a pharmacy. So even if you enjoy cannabis or any type of plant medicines or even chemical or, God forbid, pharmaceuticals, you have to understand that these things stimulate chemicals that are already in your brain that get released that make you feel high. It's not the cannabis that does that. The cannabinoids, the THC, the CBD, they stimulate chemicals in your own body. So the dopamine is being released from your brain. It's triggered by the cannabis, but the dopamine is flooding out from your brain, and your brain's already producing that. So we tend to go to these specifically because of epigenetic damages where we're not getting proper levels of dopamine and serotonin, and that is intergenerational from generations that have damaged the genetics and passed it down, okay? Now, interesting thing with doing even a little bit of yoga, forget about just Kundalini, any of the systems of stretching and breathing together seems to have a very unanimous scientific effect they've been able to study, which is that it activates the cells on a mitochondrial level, which is the little factory in the cell, and it turns the system on, and it starts regenerating and repairing itself, boosts the immune system, and is profoundly activating for regeneration, which would include also epigenetic damages. Now, there are other things you can take, specific peptides and amino acids that can activate and help replenish the epigenome, but most of the time, the epigenetics, it's looked at as when they're damaged, okay? Apparently I have an assistant in class with me today. Yes, hello. We found this little kitten on the side of the road, and yes, it just kind of walked right up to us and was like, help me. And it's been getting over a sinus thing. So it's been a journey to take on this tiny little creature who came literally out of the forest on the side of the road and was like, save me. So in regards to how your breath works, with the breath, just right here, with the breath, you're designed to actually breathe on the day-to-day basis through the nose and through the throat, okay? And when you breathe through the nose, through the throat, that creates a natural regulation of your circulatory system and your heart rate, okay? So I want you to think there's a couple categories that we're going to look at. Forceful breath through the nasal passage, which is designed to strengthen the muscles of the nasal passage, okay? And when we do this forceful breath, you can hear it, it's kind of like a sneeze. You get some force. I'm just over-exaggerating the scrunch in my face. So, I'm pulling deeply. Okay, and you can hear there's strength there. I've conditioned these muscles. In fact, that'll be one of the alienating things as we start exercising these tiny little muscles, is they're going to feel weak at first. And as they feel weak, it's because they are weak. And so it feels a little bit alienating sometimes. It's like exercising a muscle in the gym that you've never worked out and is significantly weaker. Okay, and that weakness is uncomfortable first and you have to deal with it. But if you get back in the gym the next day or the day after that, you'll notice, wow, it's even easier than the day before, and it's a progression from there and a building of morale ultimately. Yes, hi. Let's see things. I'm in the middle of this web class right now, so I can't really be your friend. But you can sit here. Okay? Just sit right here. Like I said, really just overly loving, and this is the most grateful animal I've ever seen. It's just grateful that somebody saved it. And so, continuing on with the breath. Most of us breathe very shallow through the nose, okay? Now, this is a shallow breath I'm showing you first and foremost that's forceful. Shallow because it's just up here. And the difference you can hear with the Ujjayi breath, which we've touched base on, which is the base breath in most of the yogic systems, the Ujjayi breath goes to the nose and throat. I'm going to go close to the mic so you can hear it. There's a little valve in here, okay? And that's where that deeper Ujjayi breath comes in. Now, if we were to break the deeper Ujjayi breath into a cooling feminine or a fiery masculine. So the fiery masculine would obviously be the, and the cooling feminine would obviously be the, what's regulating the heart rate, what's cooling down the body, it's cooling you down from doing these heightened fiery breath exercises. Okay, and the heightened fiery breath exercises are going to build fire and energy in the field, and then we're going to be doing the cooling breath work in between. So if you notice it, we're actually taking both masculine and feminine together. We have the fire to build, to burn off stuff from our field, and then we have the cooling feminine to ground and cool us so we don't overheat our energy. So you can see this beautiful balancing of your polarity through masculine and feminine, just with the styles of breathing you're going back and forth from, but you are honoring the polarity that all of us have of both the masculine and the feminine, all right? And animals specifically do some of these breaths, and I'll hear them do some of these breaths very specifically because they have it innately programmed in them. And so just like Kung Fu, some of the techniques and the Kriyas we do are based off of the animal kingdom and the purity of the instincts and connection that animals have to their breath and their bodies. Specifically, like this little creature wakes up and naturally stretches. Just doesn't skip it. There's not a time where this creature will wake up and not stretch out its body a little bit. We too have the same overall expectation from the system, just like it does, to open its body up. We've lost the connection from getting so in the mental mind and in the system that is currently, by the way, frozen and collapsed, if you will. So we've looked at the Ujjayi breath through the nose, through the throat, and we've looked at the concept of a forceful breath that's more shallow. We're going to be exploring both of them in the techniques that we do next, okay? So the first one, the Ujjayi, let's just get right into the base mechanics of Ujjayi breath, okay? So how do we get this valve to open to get that deep breath? And I've taught this for years to people, and I can tell you that when you get it, it'll be like riding your bike, okay? But most of you will probably have a challenge with you wanting to switch from here to here. There will be a challenge where you'll keep pulling through the nose. And that's why I've come up with a way to actually get this valve to open and you to get comfortable with it opening. So you're going to take an inhale through the mouth like this and close halfway through. And you're going to exhale the same way. And you kind of want to push through when you transition. So when you transition from you're going to push, okay? Go on, little creature. You're going to get it one of these times I set you over here. Space. Okay? And then you just kind of keep it open. And you're going to have to learn to stretch it open and get comfortable with it. It's kind of a weird sensation. But once you get it, that should be the breath that you're actually doing in your day-to-day constantly. In fact, I can get it really so slowly and gently pulled that you can barely even hear it. And it becomes like sipping like a fine wine. It's actually a different way to experience oxygen and breath. You're almost tasting and sipping it. And it's going through your, like I said, it's regulating the heart rate, regulating the circulatory system, calming you. So this is a great breath. By the way, the nose has over 20 functions besides just inhaling oxygen. One of the coolest functions I want to touch base on, and I have before, is that your nose, when you breathe through your nose, releases a mild amount of nitrous oxide, which sanitizes the air that goes through your nose. So in regards to airborne bacterial things, free radicals, or even toxins in the air, when you breathe through the nose, through the throat, you're actually filtering the air more effectively than if you breathe through the mouth. It goes right into the abdominal cavity, okay? So that's our Ujjayi breath, all right? So our fire breath that we're gonna look at, one is called Pranayama, one is called Parabhati, okay? Pranayama, we're gonna break it into, because I've been a DJ for over 2 decades, and so tempos are a good way with music to look at things. So let's look at the Pranayama as a linear beat, like a house track, like a deep house track or disco. Bum, 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 bum. It's linear, it's consistent. It's a forced inhale, exhale through the nose. Now, it's coming from here, so you can watch my stomach. You can see it's pulsing from here. So it's an interesting sensation to have the heart, the cauldron of the contraction here, but also have the engagement of flexion and force in the nasal passage. Okay, this is, again, a detail that's missed a lot with Kundalini students because they're not teaching the details of the breath, okay? Oh my goodness, we're having a little bit of a sneeze fest. Like I said, we've been nursing this creature. Just gonna honor my sacred mat by wiping a little bit of the snot off from this sweet and sick little creature that's actually doing its own form of breath work right now, literally as we're doing this. It's forcing out through its nose in a sneezing form, which is bringing me to the second style of breath work, and we'll come back to the linear beat, which is a break beat, okay? Which is like boom, ch, boom, ch, boom, ch, boom, ch, boom, ch. So that's gonna be based on a forced exhale with a relaxed inhale. And that's gonna sound like this. Still pulsing from here. Now I don't actually have to focus on the inhale, because when I contract, my abdominal cavity, my respiratory cavity naturally expands. So I don't even think about the inhale. I like to teach a series of forced exhales. The inhale will naturally come after. Now, what are we doing with a forced exhale? Well, we are literally recreating a sneeze to clear out. Now, in many cultures, sneezing is considered a form of expelling negativity or expelling demons, which is why they have phrases like, God bless you, Gesundheit. In fact, in every language, there is a phrase for when you sneeze. So what are we doing? We're recreating a sneeze right now. We're literally recreating a sneeze. Like a pump. It's pumping out of our field. Okay, so we're going to be exploring both breaths in different kriyas that we do. In fact, I like to do 30 seconds at least of the Padapati, the forced exhale. That's going to be the first one. And we're going to show degrees of how deep we can go. I'm going to give you an example. So one of the things we do with any of the kriyas or any breath work is we blow all the air out before we start. And you'll notice with my stomach, it's just everything. I pushed everything out and I'm breathless. And I'm going to sit up. Now breathless. I collapse it all. And you're going to see I sit up breathless. And from here, in some of the techniques, we're actually going to go right from that forced exhale with nothing in the lungs. What does this do? Well, there's always in kind of a misty in-between of, just going to wipe this little creature in the eyes here for a sec. There you go. Restoring it back to health is a journey. It's got a little sinus thing. Must be going around globally or something. Even more the reason why we're focusing on the respiratory and the sinus through activating the mechanism of breath. So when we're doing this forced exhale, when there's nothing in, we can get into that kind of in-between gray area of oxygen and CO2 that the lungs hold a certain kind of stagnancy because we don't breathe deep. Most of us breathe very shallow. So when we blow everything out through the mouth, you can hear I'm scraping the lungs. I'm literally scraping out collected residue that collects in the lungs. That's why it's like, that's my visuals. I see the lungs kind of going together like this. And that's from that forced expulsion with nothing inside. You can actually feel your lungs kind of contract and scrape themselves. And so stuff will start coming out of you. This is a great way if you have a lung issue. I mean, it'll be a messy journey and you should have some Kleenex and you're going to be hawking stuff up, but you keep going. You're literally manually, with the power of sovereignty, cleaning your own lungs with this forced exhale. Okay. Naturally, you'll notice from the first breath where there was no breath in, there's not much there. But each time I inhale, naturally, I start filling up and getting into a bellowing stride, if you will. So that's how we start the first 30 seconds with a lot of these kriyas, is that deeper. And then after that 30 seconds, can do a minute too, you're going to expand your windows with breath as you get more into this. It's kind of like, all right, I'm going to show you how to do jumping jacks. You've never done them. We're only going to do 20, but later on you'll end up doing 50 and so on because you'll get more comfortable. Or push-ups, same thing. So we are exercising the core strength of your body. We are taking you through a core strengthening process that actually allows for any other more superficial working out. You're going to have better running, lifting, you name it. If you can strengthen the core of the body. What is the core? It's all the muscles, tiny little muscles, all around the frame. The core, the inner frame of the body, transverse nerves, obliques, intercostal muscles in the lungs, getting these strong is profound. Most of our intercostals are very weak, which is why when you do this breath work, you might feel winded. You're going to see an exposure to things that are weaker. That is a good thing. Don't let it disarm you or, kind of distract you from what you're doing. And the fact that you have the awareness that the first time you try anything will be sloppy. Anytime after that's going to get more progressively better and better and better. So just don't come in thinking you're going to be awesome at this right off the bat. The ego tends to expect to just be good at things right away. Okay, so that's that Pranayama, the forced breath. All right, let's go back to the linear. After we do that for like 30 seconds, we're going to get into the linear breath, which can have a variety of tempos. It can be like this. It can be short and shallow, so that's deeper. You can see that's a more involved breath. It can be really shallow. And the third form I'm going to show you is going to be a breath with a movement. Okay, first one being, I'm going to set you off just so I don't knock you when I do this. A breath with a movement. Notice how the breath and the movement tie together. Okay, so one doesn't go without the other. All right, breath and movement tied together. So I inhale back, I exhale forward. I keep about 6 inches with my hands apart right here. And here's the psychic exercise, which we're going to get into. That's the next thing. I'm teaching you the physical breath work and the physical side of the process of activating and oxygenating the blood, drawing the energy and the oxygenated blood up, pressurizing into the brain, activating the dimethyltryptamine, etc. There's an energetic process that's happening as well, where you're drawing the energy from the root all the way up, and you're directing the energy. And just like if I ask you to see a pair of purple shoes in your mind's eye right now, do you see those shoes? I can see them. And what shoes did you see? Because I sent you guys a pair of shoes, and there's all kinds of purple shoes. I sent you a pair of purple Converse or some type of purple tennis shoe, okay? Which means you picked up those thought frequencies, and for those of you that saw other shoes, you customized through your filter what you wanted to see, okay? Which is a neat thing we'll get into at some point, most likely in another class, about how to develop your psychic ability. Because your psychic ability is based off of your imagination, which is based off the mind's eye. So if I were to have you visualize the lunch you had yesterday and had you imagine these pair of purple shoes, it's the same level of experience, because outside of the present, it's all in the mind, in the mind's eye, right? Okay, so in that regard, I want you to visualize a column of light. You can see 2 golden comets or serpent energies if you want to, whatever visually you get to customize. That's the neat thing about this, customized practice. But you're going to see these energies coming up with the breath as you take that deep breath in. After we do the full duration of this breath work, we're going to blow all the air out again at the end of it. Stay breathless for as long as we can. And that's going to kick in the hypoxia. Now, what does hypoxia do? We've talked about that it directs oxygenated blood to the body. Another thing that it does when we're doing this breath work is it makes the body alkaline. It changes your alchemy. So you become an internal alchemist in controlling the alchemy of the body. Okay? Oxygenates the body, turns the body more alkaline. When you blow all the air out and go breathless, it triggers the body to direct that oxygenated blood to where it needs it. So we're going to stay breathless for a matter of seconds. Then when we take that deep breath at the final end of the breath work, it's building towards this breath pressurization with these exercises, these Kriyas. We're going to take that deep breath in. And as I do, watch my whole body. Okay, I'm going to lift this up so you can see. See how my whole body is like it's like a suction. It's pulling it up. And you can see my chin is tucked. It's almost like I'm pulling upward into this, and I'm pulling the breath along the spine. Tongue spread to the roof of the mouth. Sip a little more through the mouth. Now that's where we're going to lock this valve. You can see how I have this valve closed. That's that valve for the ujjayi. Okay, it's coming up again for this. Deep breath. I've sealed it in the throat so I don't force the oxygen up into the head. Okay, so when I take that deep breath, now I'm going to pull from the knees or here, depending if we're in easy pose, depending on what Kriya we're doing. I'm going to pull the chest open, tuck the chin, tongue press to the roof of the mouth, eyes roll to the third eye. As I do these, so first bandha is the root. So I'm pulling like I'm holding from urinating. I'm transitioning that held pressure to the stomach as I pull the breath up. My next one is where? Chest, pull open, chin tucked. That's the next lock. Tongue pressed to the roof of the mouth. Next lock. Eyes roll to the third eye. Final lock. So it's like a series of locks on a door in New York City. Slide the bar across. All the way up. Now, as you're doing this physical exercise, you want to incorporate the psychic exercise with it. And that's the thing that we've lost in the West with specifically Kundalini and the teachings of the Rishis is there's no psychic exercise taught with the Kundalini physical Kriya. This is doing two things. It's doing a lot of things, but two basic things. It's exercising your psychic mind, and it's directing the energy that you're physically cultivating in the Kriya and psychically directing the energy, which we don't have much of a concept on because we're so logical and mental and visual, is that we can direct with our mind's eye psychic energy to places in our field. We can direct that psychic energy somewhere, okay? So we're going to direct psychically the energy to come up the top of the crown with the breath, and we're going to hold and squeeze and direct the energy to come down around our field and come back up through the root, which is creating what? A toroidal field. So I want you to see this psychically as you're holding your breath and you're in the physical Kriya. This psychic exercise will direct the Kundalini energy to be contained in the field. If you don't do this, you're just building that Kundalini energy to the top of the crown, and it's going to sit at the top of the crown in the field, not contained, and it will dissipate over the day. Which is why if you try the psychic exercise when you do these Kriyas, and you incorporate the psychic exercise, which is the root base of the Rishi's teachings of Kundalini that was lost in the West, and then you do a Kriya and you don't do that, again, what did I say? The results will show you with anything. You don't have to believe anybody. You can just experiment, and you should be willing to experiment. So when we direct the energy, 1 second, like I said, easy pose. Plus this little creature on me has caused this muscle. This is a really good example, by the way. I'm in my practice with Kundalini, and I have a tendon here, seize up in my leg, tightening because I'm using some effort to lift this little creature on me, so I'm not just relaxed sitting in easy pose. So that muscle started to tighten, and so I am now taking a rate tool with NMRT, which we're going to learn about tomorrow, and I am going across and along the muscles on the leg and unlocking and releasing it from that cramp. And now it's good to go back into easy pose, and we're here, okay? So directing the energy. Every one of the Kriyas that we're about to do, we're going to incorporate a psychic exercise on top of it, which is going to be exercising the psychic mind and visualization, which will start seeping out into the rest of your day. And also will start expanding your practice of these Kriyas to go beyond just a physical thing that then you can feel parasympathetically or energetically in your body. It's actually doing more with that energy. So one of my teachers used to say that all of the yogis sitting in the temples and gurdwaras that aren't doing this are just generating these bowls of energy, and higher dimensional entities come along and just eat the energy off the top of the auric fields. They're not even malicious. They're just, the energy's going to waste. It's just sitting there and no one's directing it properly. So, basics. Ujjayi, Pranayama, Padabhati. Water, cooling breath, the fire breaths. In them, we have a base of breathlessness we call the yin state, where we anchor the breath, blowing the air out. Then we have that same process after we do the breath exercise, before we take our deep breath and our psychic exercise, okay? So let's put this into practice, because this is a lot, all right? And I'm gonna guide you through each section, whether it's hitting all those locks, as you're taking your deep breath, holding and squeezing, okay? Now, some of you right away will be naturally oxygenating blood and flushing it into the system, and you're gonna feel a profound euphoria and high for some of you. Some of you, your system, your tissue is gonna be so compressed and tight, it's all gonna feel very uncomfortable, and you might even feel like you get some kind of a headache or slight when you try to pressurize oxygen. I wanna support everyone. Don't force anything, okay? We tend to go really forceful. Even when you see me do something really deep like this, it might look like I'm going really crazy flexing. I'm actually not. I have actually a very controlled pressure. to pressurize with. I haven't pushed past it. I kind of go to a point of pressure and just kind of float there. Don't push past that. I promise you, you'll have a much more enjoyable experience with anything you do, whether it's weightlifting or whatever, if you don't force anything, which comes back into the Tao and the Zen of the Wu way, going with the flow, going with the grain of the wood, not against it, with the grain, with the flow of the breath, not against it, okay? Now, the first exercise, we're just going to do an easy pose like this. It's going to be super basic, okay? And as we go through the mechanics of a basic breath exercise, where we're applying both ujjayi, okay, and the water and the fire breath, all right, which we're going to incorporate. Then we're going to do a few kriyas, and the kriyas we're going to do are the daily foundational ones that I would recommend. If you could only do 2 or 3, you chose to do only 2 or 3. These are the ones I want you to know, because I got 3 kids, and you know, it's a pandemic, and there's a lot going on in preparation for things I've been studying for 15 years, which we can get into at a separate time if you're interested. I don't have time to do sometimes an hour and a half or 2 hour set, but I will always make sure I do these 2 or 3 poses, and they significantly change my day if I do them or I don't do them. Okay, so those are the ones I want you to have, and from there you're going to naturally want to build out a routine. In fact, once I do those 2 or 3, my body wants to keep going, and you're going to see that. You're going to fall into a zone where you start warming up into this. And so each Kriya is its own magical exploration and activation, but the succession of the Kriyas that we do does something else. It builds a background resonance hertz field that you can feel if you keep going. And as we build that field together and in your own space, then we're going to finish in Shavasana, and then for a little meditation, because that field will be humming and should feel of a stillness and a resonance. And you know, I was just doing Kundalini with my kids, and we are all children in adult bodies for the most part, because most of us haven't cleared our chemical memory. So I challenged my kids like a game. See if at the end of these Kriyas you can just totally lie still without moving a single thing. If you can fully just be centered and in a space of stillness, totally still, without anything moving effortlessly. It's a skill. It's actually challenging to do. And when you get it, you'll start feeling a pulsation in every cell of your existence. And the parasympathetic sensation kicks in, where you can feel this wholeness. And a lot of us are fidgety because we don't know what to do with our energy, and because of the compression in memory, there's just a glitchiness. There's kind of a glitchy state, so to speak. Now, I'm going to go more into breath and focus on this with the duration of our hour and a half today, day 1. And I've touched base in the program that we're going to also be doing how to make your own nut or oat milk and dessert. And so what I've done is already done a video where I take you through that in the kitchen with me, because the transition for me would be, you know, it would not be clean to pause everything and set up in the kitchen. So we decided to do, I pre-recorded the process part 1. We're going to have a part 2 where I show you how to make the dessert side, but where I show you how to make the nut milk. I'm going to put the links for that. It's a video private to our group right now. It'll be made public for the next week or 2 as content for everybody once we get through this 3-day live event. But I'm going to put the links for that in the box below, and you'll have access to it from a private file system for Matrix Body Mechanics Live or Matrix Body Mechanics TV on YouTube. So I'm going to put that in after, so we can put the duration of the rest of the class right now towards these Kriyas and towards a little meditation, and you know, putting the focus on this, because honestly we could do 10 classes just on the mechanics of breath work. There's just so much to it. I will totally do that. In fact, what I have been doing is we have some infrared jade bed technology that I use for my healing practice. So we've been putting the cat on the infrared, and the infrared's been really good at drying out the sinuses. But morning times are usually challenging because its body's done some cleansing. But thank you for that. I saw somebody And apologies for any distractions with the sneezing cat, but it is ironically, significant to the sinus and respiratory, and how, how you can see the cat's doing its own form of kind of expulsions and sneezing to try to push stuff out, where a lot of us get congested and we just kind of leave it sit in there. We don't really deal with cleansing it, clearing it. Okay. So from Easy Pose, we're going to do our first breath work. We're going to blow all the air out, emptying the breath, and sitting up breathless. We're going to start with a forced exhale with nothing in. You notice how my breaths are starting to get more elongated because I'm naturally inhaling from each expulsion where there was just nothing in the beginning. I tend to progressively try to dive deeper with each expulsion. Okay, 4 more breaths, and then we're going to switch over to that pranayama, to that linear breath of fire. Here we go. Keep with the breath while I talk right now. So you can see this is a forced inhale, exhale. I'm going more elongated, and the goal is to progress with intensity and speed to where we build the breath higher and then blow everything out. Keep going with it, keep going. Don't stop while I'm talking. Tongues press the roof of the mouth even right now, just a subtle pressure for right there. Notice how as I go faster, I'm actually more forceful up here. It's more of a, almost like a shadow breath. Still pulsing from the stomach though. Last 15 seconds. Blow everything out to the mouth, anchoring the breath. Try to stay breathless. It's after you collapse, sit up. As I take that deep breath, I'm going to use my knees on this one for leverage. Remember, I'm pulling from here. Tucking the chin as I pull everything into this kind of arched space here. Sip a little more. And now, as I take that final breath, I'm going to pull this lock in, tucking the chin. Column of light from earth to sky. Now activate that psychic exercise, seeing the energy coming out and around, encasing the field. And as you exhale, you go right into that Ujjayi breath through the nose to the throat. Now, the better you get at doing this, what are we doing? Like I said, we're injecting oxygen to the blood. How does it work? Well, in the bronchi, in the lungs, they're like these little orchards, like little trees. And as you take the breath in, they get enough oxygen absorbed and they close and start putting out the CO2, okay? So we want to try to pressurize oxygen into those little orchards before they close. And actually, your lungs will start learning how to stay open a little longer, to suck it in. And at first, when you try to pressurize it, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel pressure. Eventually, your body learns how to do this. And the more that the orchards learn how to soak up the oxygenated blood, the more you're going to get into a euphoric state with every one of these that you do, to where it's very effortless. Now I'm sipping off that Ujjayi breath. It's cooling me, it's cooling my heart rate. It's bringing my heart rate down from what we were doing, which actually gets the heart rate to the equivalent of jogging in place. That's what we're doing right now. And with these Ujjayi breaths and feeling the regulating of your circulatory system in your heart, as well as the activation of your circulatory system in your heart, the Ujjayi breath is cooling. Just want to be present with that breath, present with the sensation. As you build on these techniques, they're going to feel more and more effective. They're going to make more and more an impact on your cellular activation. You're going to feel them. It's going to take less and less Kriyas to actually feel more and more. But we're going to continue on into the next one because we're going to build momentum. So we're still with that Ujjayi breath, and then we're going to blow all the air out again. Remember, anchoring the breath, staying breathless and sitting up. That's the position to begin any one of our exercises from this position. We're going to be doing what's called spinal twists, okay? There's two of the most dynamic movements the spine can perform are a spinal twist, so this way, okay? Look at that, just set two vertebrae. And a spinal flex, which would be if I'm holding the front of my leg like a roller coaster bar, I'm collapsing down. What am I doing? On this side, I'm flexing. On the back, I'm stretching. And then as I come up, I'm stretching this side and flexing the erectors and the back muscles. So I'm stretching and flexing the spine back and forth, back and forth. What is this doing? So many things. Activating the somatic and cerebral fluid in the spine to flush, which needs to be moved. Stimulating the vertebral column, stimulating the vertebral padding. You know, there's an ancient yogic saying that you're only as young as your spine is flexible. So when we're doing these spinal twists, same thing, stimulating the spinal cord, activating the somatic and cerebral fluid. So we're going to be syncing the breath with these movements. So this will be an example of our breath work with movement. So this is a form of that breath of fire. Like I said, we have the pranayama and the padabhati in review. Okay, linear, forced exhale, recreating a sneeze, expelling negativity with a relaxed inhale. And then we have either of these can be incorporated into a physical Kriya, into a movement, okay? Now, the breath really does help you to continue the physical exercise. So I want you to really think like a machine, like the breath and the movement shouldn't ever come out of sync. Okay, so we're inhaling to the left always with Kundalini and exhaling to the right to bring cooling energy in, because we're doing a practice of building fire. We don't want to overheat ourselves. Ladies, you really can't, because you are the feminine, the water. Although there are a lot of overly masculine females today, you can't overwhelm the fire. You actually need to cultivate the fire. But I would say in the current day and age, I think that both masculine and feminine need balance with the breath. So we're going to tuck our thumbs under our armpits, which is also going to stimulate the lymphatic clusters under the armpits. So we're getting a little lymphatic activation, because every time I twist, my thumb is digging into those lymphatic clusters both ways. So I'm actually getting a really good massage on the lymphatic clusters that collect under here, which can become a problem for the feminine, especially because the lymphatic clusters getting congested, clogged, stagnant, and then degenerating can set up for different types of growths in the breast tissue. So this is a really good one for the feminine. So I'm going to be inhaling left, exhaling right. Okay. When I finish this, I'm going to blow all the air out again, collapsing down, sitting up breathless. And then I'm going to take that deep breath, pulling from the root, filling all the series of blocks all the way up, and then psychic exercise at the same time. So you're not too much in the physical trying to do it too much, and you're not too much in the psychic trying to be too much. It's balancing. It's forcing you to pay attention to both, so you won't put too much into either. Drawing that breath all the way up, holding, squeezing. As you take that deep breath up, tucking the chin, series of locks, you're going to extend the elbows back. And I like to lightly plant the fingers on the pectoralis muscles and lightly extend a little more pressure here as I'm holding and squeezing, okay? Little details, they matter. We're gonna do it right now, and you'll see them along the way. I just wanted to plant the seeds for you all to have that intention and that awareness as we do it. Here we go, blowing out all the air through the mouth. Breathless, inhaling left, exhaling right. You're going to get into a nice tempo, a nice stride as you do this. I'm not forcing and muscling my way back and forth. I'm almost kind of swinging, like my elbows are weights, and the weight of each elbow swings and then kind of bounces back off of the resilience and contraction of the tissue. Last 20 seconds. Exhaling out, blowing the air out through the mouth, anchoring the breath, sitting up. And deep breath. All your locks, column of light from earth to sky. Dropping right into the Ujjayi breath. And as you go into more euphoric and even non-physical states where the soul starts leaving the body, literally, the soul starts expanding out. And that's one of the things that I first noticed with this breath work is an expansion of sensation outside of my body that would keep going. And the exhilaration to feel existence outside of my physical structure. And each one of these Ujjayi breaths is expanding into the feeling and the space that's coming in the sensation. Both with the five senses and the etheric sixth sense of expansion. It's incorporating and integrating a sixth sense in. And a pulsing in all of the cells, yet I'm sitting in a space of stillness and I'm just feeling the power in my cells, in my entire unified cellular matrix. Now, if anyone's uncomfortable with this, this is something I've been doing since I was a kid, so my muscles are really stretched. So you can see when I really flex and activate the third eye. And by the way, just doing this, rolling the eyes up like this stimulates the pineal gland and the dimethyl, the DMT, to release from. So, because when your pineal gland is actually, when you're in utero, it formulates at the roof of the mouth and ascends to the center of the brain. So there's nerve endings to the roof of the mouth. That's why pressing the tongue to the roof of the mouth and then rolling the third eye, it's activating nerve points to the pineal gland from both sides. So you can literally just sit with Ujjayi breath and this for 2 or 3 minutes, and it'll relax and calm, center, and expand you. And it'll feel tight. These muscles feel tight. You have to, and if you've been doing this for a while and you get them all stretched out and then you stop doing it and you do it again, you'll notice they tighten back up. These muscles tighten in the eyes. Now we're going to go through the eye sequence tomorrow where I show you how to release all the muscles and nerves around the eyes, because the eyes are the windows to the soul, but they're also the windows to the outside world, and they're stressed out. They're programmed survivalistically off of predated humans that are looking just from the binocular vision, where we've mutated as a species to look from what's called the peripheral, which is allowing your eyes to relax and taking in, not scanning like animals survivalistically. This thing's going to try to eat me. I'm going to eat this thing. Oh, there's a giant volcano exploding. I need to run. It's that. This is how our eyes were programmed survivalistically. And nobody has taught us to relax the eyes from the peripheral, which naturally starts happening when you do this breath work and you go into these more etheric states. So as I'm sitting in that Ujjayi, I'm feeling. Generally, it's nice to take a minute to 2 minutes in between these Kriyas, staying in that breath. And then I'm going to go right into the spinal flexus, okay? And these spinal flexus, I want to really plant the seed that it's not up here, that it's actually all in your hips. The sit bone on the hips, you can sit off and on it. So you can see I'm actually rocking on and off my sit bone. And look, I can show you how much it's not my shoulders. I can hold my shoulders down, and you'll see how much the movement that I have has nothing to do with the upper body. Now, you're going to see me accentuate the shoulders and add it to enhance the spinal flex. But they're not the primary source. A lot of people get really up here with this. Don't do it. Make it come from here. The hips and the rest of the spine will follow suit, but it should be at the root, just right. So the rest of the body, the rest of the spine will follow suit, but the primary movement should be at the root, okay? On and off the sit bone. You're striding, like riding a horse, basically, okay? Now, we add in that navel point being pulled in. Now, here's something to add a nuance for you. I put my fingertips on the front here. This is, like I said, this is our roller coaster bar. And I don't really pull hard. I actually almost plant the pads of the fingers and kind of arc the hands almost held like a rake. And I just allow the extension of the shoulder blades along with the collapse. It just really dives deep into this, the stretch this way. And then the stretch this way, deeply arcing the back. So our spinal flexes are going to be a little different taught from the rishis than Western Kundalini. Western Kundalini is generally a generic pace that's always with pranayama. So, you know, in a basic exercise, they would just have you start off. They wouldn't have you anchor the breath. Okay, and here we go, spinal flexes. And that's basically the tempo for the entire exercise. We're actually going to have two different stages. We're going to have the Parvati and the Pranayama. So this lung scraping side, this will be the deepest lung scraping exercise that I teach you, okay? And I'm going to show you how deep I go with it because I want to challenge you to explore that. And trust me, when you're on your own, you'll be doing it, you'll be hawking stuff up. You'll even see me do it right now because I want you to see the significance of what it is to do this lung cleanse, okay? And after we do some deep cleansing and spine stretching, really getting into the way we can go both ways, really slow and elongated at first, we're going to transition more to that spinal flex that's in a faster tempo, okay? And then we're going to blow all the air out, collapsing, sit up breathless, column of light from earth to sky, along with our series of bandhas, our locks all the way up, and then we're going to psychically direct that energy up, okay? Again, details. These are the nuances of working this machine. It looks on the surface like the same technique. It's very different, okay? It's very different in the fact that sometimes key details that's what makes mastery. That's what mastery is all about, is key details. So here we go, blowing all the air out. Sitting up breathless. Starting with our first collapse down. There's nothing in because I have nothing in, so there's not going to be much of a forced exhale. You're just going to be down to bare bones. You can see me stretch both ways, fully extending and stretching both ways. See, I can feel there's less and less stuff in here with each one of those clearings. It's coming out. I literally I have gone from full saturated lungs to clean, scraped out lungs in one Kriya when done properly. Let's do 10 more. Notice still forceful from the nose. This is a good way to actually connect the Ujjayi breath with the forceful fire breath, because you'll notice I'm doing Ujjayi through the nose to the throat, but still forceful here. You can hear it goes right down to my gut. So I'm going to start picking the pace up. Now notice the breath intervals are shorter and cleaner, more concise. I'm rocking on my heel, stimulating the perineum right now as well, by the way. That's a more advanced thing. Most of you, the heel sit in front. If you can try, even for a couple, try sitting a little more on the heel and grinding and rocking on the heel. It will be painful at first, but eventually feels really good. Emptying everything out, anchoring the breath, and sit up breathless. Deep breath through the nose, pulling our whole system of locks, column of light from earth to sky. Dropping into that Ujjayi breath through the nose, through the throat, cooling the fire. Regulating the heart. Feeling the expansion of awareness around the body, that euphoria, that lightheadedness, if you were able to pressurize properly. And let's think about that. What is that euphoria? What is that leaving? That expansion outside of the body. And why is it so familiar? I've talked about something for years with students that is, when I was a kid, there was a thing that we used to do where we would make ourselves pass out. Does anyone remember that? You used to do this hyperventilation thing where someone would push on your chest after you do these breaths. And you'd leave your body. And it was kind of like a nitrous oxide euphoric process. And of course, then our parents saw us doing it and they were like, don't do that. They got freaked out. But I've talked to students, humans, all over the world, from Iceland to South America. And almost every human is familiar with this thing we used to do as kids where we make ourselves pass out. Or they knew kids that did it, but they didn't do it themselves. I want you to think about something. If your brain's only operating at 5 to 7%, and by oxygenating blood and manipulating the oxygenated blood into the brain to activate the dormant centers, which not only activates and stimulates and wakens the gray matter, but it activates the frontal cortex, which is where your psychic ability lies. So it's like basically how to turn on and upgrade your tech. And this was an ancient engineered system for humanity that we were supposed to have passed down intergenerationally. But what was passed down was ignorance, and we were lost from these techniques. How was it? Because when I was a kid, there was no internet. There was no way to really connect with somebody in Iceland or South America and tell them about these breath techniques. So there was no way for all these kids to be doing this all over the world that I found. There was no network. There was no net, no web to connect us in that regard. So how were all these monkeys, I'm saying monkeys because of the 100th monkey effect, an interesting study where they found that grooming for monkeys in a separate part of the world changed after one group. And they did a study in Canada that they, with humans, same thing, and that they've theorized that there's a thought grid that connects everything. So how are all these humans doing this makeshift breath thing to make themselves feel a euphoria and a high? But actually what they were doing was, you know, in the technique, you would blow all the air out, hypoxia style, and then someone would push on your chest, which would actually, if you think about it, even if you blow all the air out, you still have some stagnant air in there. It's basically kind of pressurizing a little bit of oxygen or depleting the brain of oxygen, which ironically is what happens with nitrous oxide, which kills the brain cells, I think like 10,000 brain cells per huff of nitrous oxide. Whether you're at the dentist or recreationally doing it, be aware of that. But isn't it ironic that both depleting the brain of oxygen and flooding the brain with oxygen create a similar effect? And it is my theory, that was divine. It was a divine channeled confirmation, but it, you know, to the world, it's my theory that we as a species, the children, were waking up and feeling around in the dark for something because they weren't taught how to do these breath techniques, feeling out blindly for some way to turn on our brain and feel this euphoria. And literally that is my theory for why humans, and I know some of you will be laughing because you know about this breath pass out thing, or you did it, I did it. And really what we were looking for was a system, a divinely engineered system with all kinds of cool science behind it that really does what we were wanting, which is gives us euphoria and turns the brain on. So as you do these techniques, and there are specific ones to flood the brain with oxygen, and when you go on to Matrix Body Mechanics TV, you can see me taking students through some of these breath pressurization, astral projection techniques where they fully leave their body and come back. And I can tell you from taking thousands of people through it and doing it for 20 years, since I came upon it by accident, I was doing this spinal flex and I got a really clean pressurization and got my lungs to relax and injected that blood, the oxygen went in, it rushed, and all of a sudden I woke up on the floor and I had gone somewhere, and it was the most profound journey. And I was like, what was this? And my yogi at the time was like, what was that like? Because he had never actually let go, and that's a big one, of holding on to this thing. This is the big thing that, unless you surprise yourself, I didn't know what was happening, so I got blindsided by it. Once I introduce it to you, the mental side takes over of the fear of control, losing control of your body. These are big things that come from this astral projection magical process that is like pressing a reset button. And that's literally what happens. Your soul leaves your body. And the first time that I take people through this, they release something I call the sigh of 1,000 sighs. It's like this. It's literally what they sound like as they leave and come back. And most of the time they come back and what happened? They're all freaked out because the shock of leaving and coming back in the system, it like resets the system. I've had students and patients describe everything, including my own experiences of being seated in front of a council of light beings, angels, with their dead relatives. And the interesting thing is, because you punch out into a higher density and come back into your body, it's a matter of seconds that you're out, but it feels like a lifetime. And the more you learn how to do it, the more effortless it is. And you notice you don't have to leave all the time. Sometimes the best feeling is I'll actually be in between leaving and in my body. And there's a profound fusion to stand between the doorways, to feel the fusion of experience between densities. But every time you come back, it's like you slept for 8 hours. You feel refreshed, rejuvenated, and you're less and less attached to this thing. So even the last technique I showed you, if it's done properly, do it on your own. Now there are specific techniques where you have a teacher, a facilitator spot you and take you through it. And you can see some of those on the videos, and maybe at some point I might actually take somebody through one of those on here. My intention obviously is to be able to facilitate real classes where I can have you physically attend a class and take you through this. And also we'll be doing one-on-one instruction more specifically to facilitate components like this, whether it's with a couple where they spot each other and I instruct them through it, but magical. And I found these correlating ties to everything from the breath technique as a kid, something there that I knew was special as a kid, something, but it wasn't right, but it was something, and there was a reason that, so many kids found it. And then as I continued over 20 years asking students, do you remember this? Did you do this as a kid? And then taking them through the actual engineered techniques that are based off the body mechanics and the circulatory system and the brain and the DMT and how it works with the pineal gland and pressurizing the oxygen in the bronchi and understanding the anatomy and physiology. That's where more of the confirmation came in, was to look at the science behind what I was intuitively guided to, that I don't know what this does. So we're going to do one more technique for the lungs right now, specifically. We've done spine a lot. We're going to get into the lungs. And this one is actually a massage one. So we're going to be hitting 3 places. The back of the lungs here, the diagonal circumference of the lungs here, and then the front of the lungs. So you can see 3 different places. I'm stimulating the rib cage, thus the lungs, through a form we call deportment. It's a form of body work where stimulating the tissue through style technique, okay? So we're going to, in between each one of these, we're going to actually clap. Now, the exhale is going to be when we do that deportment. If you think about it, we're expelling while stimulating the lungs, almost kind of shocking, helping to force the expulsion out. Now you'll notice the inhale comes as I bring my elbows out. And I'm fanning. So I'm going back, middle, front, middle, back, middle, front, middle, back, middle, front, middle, back, middle, front, middle, back, okay? So when we finish this one, we're gonna bring the hands together as we blow out, exhale out, sitting breathless, then we're gonna bring the hands together. We're gonna take a deep breath, pulling up our chain of locks and our pillar of light, holding, squeezing, and we're gonna actually pull with tension, pulling the chest open from here. Chin will be tucked, same thing, we're just creating the pressure lock here for the heart center. Holding, squeezing, exhaling, and on this next one, we're actually going to relax and come down onto our back after this next one and just go into that parasympathetic nervous system, feel the pulsing, feel the sensation that we've created. And we're going to do one more lying down from there and go back in, and we're going to be back in that Shavasana, present with the breath and that parasympathetic nervous system, in the Ujjayi breath, feeling the pulsation and activation of the cellular matrix. And from there, we're going to do our finishing twisting stretches. We call it a cat stretch. And then we're going to rock on the spine. I'm going to show you just the basics of how to give yourself a spine massage, spinal rocking. It's one of the coolest and simplest techniques I first learned from one of my yogis, and it was just like opened a whole avenue of how I can massage my own back with the ground. We're going to transition into what's called Plow Pose, let the spinal cord drain, and then we're going to rock ourselves back up and close out how we tuned in with our tuning and closing our container. And that will bring an end to day 1 of our live event, 3-day event that we're doing. And then remember, as I said, almond milk video coming. I'm going to be putting it in the comments below and posting it also in the Matrix Body Mechanics group, which please request to join, because we're going to be broadcasting to that platform, and it is going to be closed for the event. Actually, it's open, it's public for the event right now, so you can share it with people. But the content itself, you guys will have access to, and then it will be public after the event closes out. So feel free to also invite people. Tomorrow's going to be a powerful day. You didn't have to complete today to be a part of tomorrow or Sunday. But you can, anyone can always catch back up by going back through this. I'll also have this video for you all that's recording, edit it a little bit and put it back in, so you guys will have access to that and usage of this, hopefully, to guide you. And again, that's the key, is having a support system, having somebody that you can sit along with and go through practices that help you to create the interdependence and the independence then to be able to do these practices on your own, because the deepest places you'll go will be on your own, just kind of playing around and exploring and committing some time to this. Here we go. Blowing all the air out through the mouth. Sitting up breathless. Starting with the back one. Remember, there's nothing in right now, so it's just going to be like all about expelling. Try not to clap too loud. I'm a really loud clapper, so I'll try to restrain it, because I imagine it might be kind of loud on the mic. But for yourselves, make that clap. The whole point is the sound actually shocks and wakes the cells too. So there's a whole element with the sound and the impact, the energy of the clap, breaking up the field, breaking up static in the field, stagnancy. Sound is powerful. Fanning the arms out, going center, diagonal, and back, and middle, and front, and middle, and back. And keep with it. Keep on it. Present with the breath. All right, 30 more seconds. Lungs should be heating up. Torso should be kind of warming. You should feel that in the ribs and the lungs. Now notice this is kind of more the Parabati, forced exhale, natural inhale, kind of creating a physical expression of pumping out the negativity from the field. Blow everything out. Staying breathless. Hands together. Column of light from earth to skies. You unlock your bandhas. Dropping right into that ujjayi. We're just going to take 3 breaths in the ujjayi, and we're going to come lying flat on our back. And we're going to transition. You can bring the legs out. Ooh, how they feeling from that easy pose? Shake them out, shake them out. I like to do ankle rotations, rotating in a circle clockwise 5 or 6 times, and then the opposite. You can do the wrist too if you want. And lying flat on the back. In Shavasana, palms up, just relaxing, present with the breath. Dead weight, the whole body, fall into stillness. Present with that breath, being the witness, feeling the pulsation, the activation in all the cells, present with the breath, feel that stillness. The more you can drop into the stillness, the more you can feel the pulsation of all the energy and feel the unification of all the cells unified with presence. And that ujjayi breath just fuels that cooling, nurturing expansion, the calming of the system. Now we're going to go into our last technique. I'm going to challenge your hand-eye coordination. You're going to bring the knees tucked in. Scoot myself down a little bit more. There we go. And the knees are going to be tucked in. There we go. And as they're tucked in, I'm going to interlock the hands behind my head. And the actual start position is relaxed down like this. And I'm going to inhale and take my right elbow and bring it to my left knee while extending my right leg. Okay? So right leg extends, right elbow goes across to touch the left knee. And then it's going to come back. I'm going to relax down completely, elbows down. Don't keep them up and ready to fire. You got to fully relax down. Then I'm going to do the other one. Okay, so I want you to consider that one repetition is going to be both sides. So we're going to do 20, which is technically 40. So here's one. One, okay? So go at your own pace. We're going to do 20. All right, you're going to feel the burn and activation all through the transverse abdominis and obliques, but also the lungs, okay? Now when we finish this one, we're going to exhale all the way out. Stay breathless as long as you can. Then you take a deep breath. Sip a little more. We're gonna tuck into a ball. Elbows to knees, holding, squeezing. And during this time, you're gonna hold like you're holding from urinating, so pulling. So you gotta hold and pull that root lock up as you're tucked. And relax down into Shavasana. We're going to spend our final minute in stillness and go into the final couple closing stretches that'll bring us rocking ourselves on our spine, rocking ourselves back into easy position where we began, and we're going to close out together with our sound frequency and vibration. All right? Here we go, tucking the knees. And let all the air out to start. Anchoring the breath. Starting with the right elbow to the left of the hand begin. Keep those knees tucked. We're at 6. That's 10. 12. 4 sets, 70. You might have to space it out a little bit. Just but try not to lose the momentum. That's 18. 19, last one. That's 20, blowing all the air out. Relaxing down now, Shavasana. Dropping into that Ujjayi breath, the body should be hot and pulsating, vibrating, present with the breath, dive right into the parasympathetic nervous system, feeling that. Present with the breath, being a witness. All sensation, vibration, information. Fluctuating in and out with the breath as the circulatory system regulates and balances. Okay, now before we massage our spine, we're going to just give the body the opportunity through an accelerated twist to set any vertebrae in the spine that are off, usually through the lumbar. It's a great way to set the lumbar. You're going to bend the right knee, and you're going to bring it across the body, locking it in with just the subtle weight of the left arm while the right arm extends out. Right arm against the floor, And I like to draw it all the way up. I don't think you can fully see it. Drawing the arm up and extending this way, along with extending that left foot down, so it's like they're pulling between. And I'm going to bring that right arm now back. And coming back center. Bending the right or the left knee, bringing it across the body. Left arm extended outward. So you can, there you are. Drawing it up and extending the right leg now and the left arm, feeling that like a line of rope going between. And literally it is there because the myofascial webbing is a series of bands and fibers that are constantly accumulating. So actually moving, there's something called fascial unwinding where you actually start like kind of like a cat. You start in extension and you kind of just follow where it can go in its rotation and continue. So see, I'm bringing it all the way over, exploring all the degrees, still extending. I'll just set the shoulder, that was good. I'm gonna come back, good. So that fascial unwinding can be very abstract. You can it's exploring extension and really constantly opening and tearing the myofascial webbing. So straighten the spine. Now we're going to dive into the magic of spinal massage. So you can grab the big toes, or you can put the bottoms of the feet together and rock back and forth. Now, the goal is to hit every vertebrae. And now you notice I can actually shift my weight subtly a little bit to the left. Now massaging the left erector of the spine, the rhomboid, teres major minor. Oh, now I'm going to angle over this side without hitting the mic. And I'm going to get the right erector, right rhomboid, right trap. You can even go a little bit side to side. You can feel you can massage the spine. Every degree at the spine. And the more that you get into the rocking and relax the back and feel this out. Again, whole different dynamic if you can grab the feet. If you have to grab the knees, you can still rock the spine and massage it. Just massaging different areas and focusing more higher up on the rhomboids now and the traps. But I'm massaging, literally massaging, and that is going to lead us into plow or shoulder stand, which is going to be either you're going to come up here, or if you can come over, ideally, the goal, let me try to move myself, the goal would be to come all the way over eventually to where you can come to here. Now I want to show you something as you get more accelerated. Notice how I can get my hands on my feet here, okay? And as I arc into this, notice that I can push my feet and I'm pulling out my shoulders, okay? Let me adjust this down a little bit so you can see more what I'm actually doing here. You can see how from here I'm pulling out my shoulders and stretching them out, extending them out of the sockets, giving them some fresh blood and oxygen. And then I can also pull, which is going to extend and open the back of the legs. Now, a big thing about stretching most people don't know is I don't want to just pull on my feet here, okay? I don't want to just pull and stretch them. That's actually not proper stretching. Initiating a little flexion. So watch my feet push out some. So I'm pulling them, but then I'm adding a little pushback. And that flexion allows the muscle fibers to open so much deeper when they're being flexed and stretched. That flexion stretch, it's a form of resistance stretching. It's actually the legitimate way to stretch. If you're just pushing something to stretch open, engaging a little flexion is going to open double the fibrous bundles of muscle, okay? So obviously there are some variances to this. You know, you can let the legs come down and then you can
interlock the hands behind the head this way. That's one. You can also, see if I can do it without hitting the mic, you can open up the legs like this to split and stretch in the same. This is an extension of Plow Pose. I got both the toes held right now. Okay, so coming back. Now I'm going to rock myself back to seated position. Okay, damaged my medallion too much. And we're rocking ourselves back to seated position to begin, to close how we began. So sitting in easy pose, one foot tucked in front of the other. If you are comfortable and you feel like it, and you want to tuck both feet up. And again, let's take a look at the sacred geometry just of the mechanics of this here. Lotus. Lotus is by bending my legs like this, I'm actually pulling apart the primary nerve junctions in the hips. I'm opening the nerve junctions in the hips, letting the toxic chemical residues, lactic acid, calcification break up and drain at the primary joints in the hips right now. Now, bound lotus, which takes one arm and come around and grab one foot here, and this one comes around and you grab the other, and then you collapse down. That is called bound lotus. Let's just look at the divine engineering of that. What am I doing? This is opening both the primary junctions in the hips. This is opening the primary junctions in the shoulders, right? Now, if I can't reach on one side, you can take a piece of fabric and grab that foot until you can get to that level of flexibility. But now, both shoulders and hip joints are open, collapsing down. Boom. Sitting like this. I've only done it once in my life for 30 minutes straight, and it was the most magical thing after, but it was so intense to get there. I do it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes sometimes, and those windows expand the more that you explore. Okay? I'm going to go back to easy pose for the visual sake of all of us here feeling more unified. Now, by this time, you should feel warm, and you want to keep some of that heat going, and when you stop, as we close, you want to have something, even in Shavasana, generally to cover yourself. Keep the warmth in so you don't just change temperatures quickly. All right. Scratching the surface, the yogic breath work and the sciences of breath from the purity of the yogic systems, channeled OG originally from the rishis. It's been an honor. Just want to say that this is one of many pieces that we will be building and exploring from. Move this up a little bit. There we go. And we're scratching the surface. I'm excited to offer very advanced, intermediate and advanced programs coming up, one-on-one mentorship for the Raja Rishi Yoga, for the neuromuscular therapy, and for biochemical nutrition. This trinity of health and wellness has been profound in my transformation and regeneration to be healthier in my 40s than I was in my 20s. Helped a lot of people to do the same. It's kind of magic, but it's more science and divine engineering of sciences that this biological computer was designed to utilize and incorporate into daily life practices. It is truly an honor to share them with you. And each time I do, it's a completing of a cycle from the blessings of the divine, sharing them with me through other humans that had uncovered them. So, as we did to tune in to contain this, we're going to take our right hand and our left hand. We're going to rub them together, building that bioelectric kinetic
energy and bringing it to the heart center. We're going to be inhaling and exhaling twice on the third one, releasing our newly introduced but very ancient to ourselves sound frequency Om Namo. Taking a breath, Guru Dev Namo. That's the first two. On the third one we're going to do it all in one. So it'll be shorter intervals. Om Namo, Guru Dev Namo. Explore your sound. If you're with your family, explore your sound. Don't be afraid. Don't be inhibited. Family is the easiest to get comfortable with sound around. If you're by yourself, really explore your sound. Remember, E, I, O, U. Those are the 5 sounds you can make. They all get covered in this specifically. Explore the posturing of each sound to feel the resonance the most. And inhale. And exhale. Now remember too, after we do this, Om Namo Guru, the final one, we're going to take that deep breath. That's our final pressurization to really draw the energy and the psychic exercise. That's our final one, okay? Then we're going to do a long drawn out Sat Nam. So Sat, breath, and Nam. Sat meaning true, Nam meaning identity. So very powerful to say with sound, true identity, and state that out into your field before you start your day or in the midst of your day, or to close your day. And inhale. And exhale. And inhale to tune in. Deeper breath to really elongate that sound. Guru Deva Guru Deva Namo. Last one in one breath. Om Namo Guru Deva Namo. Stay breathless. Final pressurization. Right into that Ujjayi breath. And a long drawn out Sat Nam. Sat Nam. Now from here, for myself, I usually transition into some upright meditation, present with the breath, savoring the stillness I just created with all those Kriyas. Grounded in that Ujjayi breath. I'll leave that to you guys to take it from here. Truly an honor to share these ancient sciences with you. And again, we got through a lot, and yet it's just scratching the surface. So now your continued exploration is on you. And the journey to dive deeper into uncovering the expansive layers of what it is to activate your body, mind, and soul, your cellular matrix, your consciousness matrix, and bring union with them. That's what it's all about. It's these spiritual internal technologies that are going to really help us to make it through this technological, technocratic, tyrannical oppression process that we're all in right now. So whatever they try to throw at humanity, we can handle. We are that powerful. This is, on some level, a divine creator God university program with a multitude of packages that will embrace whatever level you're willing to explore your divinity and understand it. But I promise you it will be progressive, because the reason I've spent over 20 years exploring this is because they do produce results. I hope you got to experience even a fraction of those results with me this morning. Morning for me, afternoon, late afternoon for many of you. And yeah, I look forward to day 2. We're going to get deep into neuromuscular release therapy. Day 3 will be a collective review and exploration. You get to do some Q&A, and we'll be discussing programs coming up in the future. Again, truly an honor. Aloha. Satnam. I will see you tomorrow. Be good to each other and yourselves. Satnam.